Hello, ladies, gentlemen, welcome back to a brand new video, a very heavily requested one, the build video on the Crescent Wave. That's one. That's two. That's three. Dude, I knew the vision was there. That's four. That's five. The 6, come on! Now, a very quick disclaimer, this video is being recorded only 2 weeks before the Season 10 release, so in 2 weeks, a lot will change and the update video will follow soon after. And another disclaimer, I threw this build together extremely quickly, and by no means this is a full biz build. However, I will give you some examples of good pieces that you can use, and if you want to make a very fun build that's very cheap, and you happen to have some hoplite pieces, this video is going to be perfect for you. We're going to make it super easy. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. Let's start out with 3 of the most important things. That's going to be your weapon, which is the Crescent Wave. Currently, the only way of getting this is by completing the season pass all the way to level 20. So as you can see right here, Crescent Wave is being claimed. When the season 10 drops, there's going to be other ways of obtaining it. Right now, that's simply not the case. So that's how you get it. And we're gonna talk more about like what perks you want to put on it and whatnot in a second. Elemental Bend is your best in slot ring, in my opinion, by far. You want to put Invigorated Punishment onto this one, and I believe you get this from the Gorgon's Hive. Yeah, there's not too much else to say. Try to do your Gorgon runs, and eventually you will drop it. And the last artifact that you need for this build to really shine is the Crit Boots. Now, these Crit Boots have the passive of Ambush, where the backstabs and headshots deal massive amount of damage, so 20% increase crit damage and inflict them with 10% weaken. So this is going to enable you to do some massive hits. I mean, the best I've gotten was the one hit 13k damage hit, but you can get some absolutely ridiculous hits with this. Now, if you wanted to go a little bit more defensive, you have stuff like Featherweight that you could potentially use. You have stuff like Attuned Leather Pants that you could potentially use, but I would heavily recommend you to use Crit Boots. And the way we accomplish Crit Boots is by doing Atalus Foundry, the elite zone, which is located right over here. So we're talking Ebon scale. You go to the shrine of Tyowen and you go all the way here. You just kill random mobs in this area and eventually you're gonna be dropping Crit Boots. So now that we have all of the artifacts out of the way that I think are the best for this build, let's quickly talk perks. And you will very quickly see that I only use one spell on my Greatsword. And you may be thinking that I'm trolling. Well, the truth is, this is by far the best option if you want to deal as much damage as possible. You may be wondering why that is the case. We are putting Moonstone in it. Now, as you can see, I have a cased Moonstone, and I deal 70% bonus damage when my active weapon abilities are on cooldown. And then we deal some bonus damage after like a little bit of time. The reason why this is so good is I can spin, and all of a sudden I will be dealing the most possible damage ever. Now, if I had 3 spells, I would need to use all 3 spells. That would be like really bad. That's basically why we only use one spell. And when it comes to just the tree, it is the easiest tree you will ever do. You simply take everything in the spin and you take everything in like all the passives. It is by far the easiest way to build a weapon I've ever seen in my life. So definitely this is the way to go when it comes to the Great Axe. I'll talk about the Hatchet a little bit later. Obviously the perk that we want to put on it, as I said, is this is the gem slot, right? So we can put the Moonstone on it. When it comes to the Elemental Bend, I already mentioned Invigorated Punishment is your best option. And when it comes to your Crit Boots, I think the best option is to simply put Relentless Freedom. This is going to be the perk that you will absolutely need if you're playing your Greatsword. This will make it so when you click it, you will basically get out of stuns, right? So a lot of the times this is gonna be get out of jail, free card, basically completely for free. If I said Great Axe, I meant Greatsword, obviously. Okay, so now that we have the weapons sorted, well, at least the Greatsword, let's talk about the Hatchet. Hatchet has a lot of possibilities, but in this build, I think the only important thing is the fact that you have a refreshing distancing throw. I think everything else doesn't really matter. Refreshing distancing throw is going to allow you to use your social distancing skill, and you will reduce the cooldown by 45% whenever there are, you know, people next to you, I believe. So as long as you have that, you're pretty good. We over here have a Gorgon's Hatchet with Penetrating Backstab, which is actually a great perk as well, and Disdained Infliction, which, you know, it's a fine perk. But if you want to go a more damage Hatchet route, you would probably want to have Kin Berserk on it, Vicious, and probably one of the more aggressive perks alongside with it. However, again, I think Refreshing Distancing Throw is the best option here. And when it comes to your tree for the Hatchet, we keep it very simple. We make sure we use all of the perks over here in the Berserk tree. I personally prefer playing with the Raging Torrent. The way I like to play this build is I wait for people to be out of stamina, switch to Hatchet, use my Raging Torrent and get 4 very quick swings in for a lot of damage in the back. But again, if you're only using the distancing throw side of things, there is an argument where you go social distancing and infected throw, making sure you get the aerial transmission as well. However, this is what I run. I take all of the, powerful passives to go with it. And this is how I personally like to play it. Feel free to copy it if you'd like, but feel free to get rid of the Raging Torrent altogether and just put those points in the infected throw up to aerial transmission. Okay, so now we have good understanding of our weapons and our artifacts. Let's jump down to the amulet and earring of your choice. Now again, this account is not a full beast account. I created this build right before season 10, so I didn't want to invest too much into it, but we have a simple hoplite amulet here with the Health Divine. Now if you want the beast amulet, you would probably look into the Health Divine and the protection of your choice. Right now that would be Health Divine Arcane Protection, that would do great. Health Divine Fire Protection would be great as well, or something like Health Divine Slash Protection would be amazing as well. If you want a very free option for your, amulet slot, you would be looking into Amulet of Shanashin. For that, you will need to be able to defeat the worm, and it's a small chance to get it. You can eventually craft it just with the materia as well, and you'll be able to get stem recovery health, and then put any of the protection of your choice, whether that is slash protection, arcane protection, fire protection. All of those would be great options for you. So now with the amulet slot out of the way, whether it is health divine protection or whether it is stem recovery, health and protection, obviously we went over the ring. I don't think you can pick anything else but elemental band. And now when it comes to the earring, we keep it nice and simple. This is my beast earring for my bruiser already, so we just use fortifying toast, refreshing toast, regenerating. Now you could use fortifying toast, refreshing toast and nimble here as well, and that would probably be maybe even better on this build, because every time you heavy, your stamina is going down. So every time you're heavying, right, your stamina bar is going down. So perhaps nimble for this build would be a little bit better. But again, regenerating is nice. We went over the crit boots. You could choose something else than Relentless Freedom if you have another piece that has an enchanted ward, protection and Relentless Freedom already on it. If not, just put it on the boots and you will be good. And now let's talk about the best in slot possible option for your perks. I would say it's probably Enchanted Ward, Conditioning of your choice, and then actually shirking heals most likely. But as long as you have a 2-perker of Enchanted Ward Conditioning, you can pick your 3rd perk to be whatever you may need. The other item that's worth mentioning here is this Silken Cocoon. I'm personally using this body that you also get from the worm, which has a Keen Enchanted Ward and you can and Shirking Energy, right? So I put those 3 perks on it. This is an illegal perk combination, so you can have Shirking Energy over here on the body side of things, and it's honestly fine. And all my other pieces are actually very bad. As you can see, I have a 2-perker of Enchanted Ward Thrust Conditioning here on the helmet, and here I'm just using the Hoplite because, simply put, I did not want to invest any gold into this build, so we got Enchanted Ward Health with Refreshing in this case. Not the best, but we have Enchanted Ward with 2 mediocre perks, we'll take it. And then my boots are, my legs are also Hoplite, very bad again, Enchanted Ward Health, so 1.5 perk a gear, but I'm reaching the 725 gear score and I'm fine with it temporarily. Again, if you want the best in slot option for the next 2 weeks, that would be Enchanted Ward with some sort of protection, some sort of conditioning, and then 3rd perk of your choice. Some people prefer Shirking Heals, some people prefer the perks, maybe Keen Berserk. We don't have Keen Berserk anywhere on this build, for example. Something like that, make it fit your build. Okay, now we have a good understanding of the weapons, good understanding of the jewelry, mediocre understanding of the gear. Let's quickly talk consumables on this build. We're definitely going to be using Regenerating Serum, making sure that our, stamina gets regened after we use our stuff. It's by far your best option. Now, if you're in the middle of a war like me right now, in the middle of a meme war, you might be using cleansing potions here. If you're not in the war scenario, you will be using a infused health potion in this slot. And then you see I have a mana potion here on my 3rd slot, and this build will soak mana. The way the Crescent Wave works is after you spin, after you heavy, you're using 20 mana per your attack. You see 60, 40, 20. Now it's not gonna do wave attacks anymore, so we gotta use the mana potion, and then we can keep on waving. You're gonna be eating through the mana pots like crazy on this build. And the reason why we're using both serums and health potions is sometimes you're gonna click serum, and as you can see, serum has a much longer cooldown than a potion, and if I'm ever dropping under 50% health on this build, I cannot use my wave attacks again, so we're gonna need to use our regular health potion to top up quickly so we can use the wave attacks again. So if you don't really understand what I just talked about, you need to understand the passives of the Crescent Wave, and this is where you need to be above 50% health for the heavy attacks to cast a wave, and that's basically it, and the wave costs 20 mana. So keep in mind, those consumables are gonna be your best in slot, and when it comes to your last consumable, I'm using gemstones because they're the cheapest right now, but you can go ahead and use an arcane absorption potions. They're gonna be probably best in slot right now. This will protect you against the other Crescent Wave users, well, a little bit, or you can use something like an oak flesh bomb, and that's gonna protect you against the melee people that's gonna be hitting you. You have a lot of options here: fire absorption potions, arcane absorption potions, oak flesh bombs, or gemstone dusts are your best options here, in my opinion. Okay, now we have an extremely good understanding of just about everything here. Let's go ahead and talk about Heartrunes for just a moment. I believe on this build, by far the best Heartrune to use is going to be the stone form. This is going to be able to, well, help you get out of situations that are just bad, right? But if you want to be greedy with it, you can probably put vines here and be fine. You can even put Detto and go for some clip plays. You'll be fine. You could even go for a cannon and you'll probably be fine in some cases. However, the Stalwart Heartrune of Stone form is going to be your best in slot option here for sure. It is time to move over to the attributes, and this is where my build cannot play the proper attribute split that I would like to split, and let me demonstrate to you why that is the case. If I put my stats in the strength, I'm going over 377 strength simply due to my magnify. So if you just have some pieces that are either dex or con, you will not have this problem, and then you can play 350 strength, push your dex as high as you want, and push your con as high as you want. However, again, I have magnify issues, I cannot do that, so I have to play dex, and my first choice of action is just to play 350 dex. This way I get a little bit more crit chance while empowered. It's not great, it's not bad, it does the job. Then I can decide, well, do I want to play 100 con, 5 con, or 150 con? Keep in mind, I have a food buff used right now. Most of the times, my sweet spot is 100 con. If I'm playing without a healer, my sweet spot is 150 con. And then the rest, I'm just gonna toss over here in the strength, and that is going to be all we're gonna do. Now, again, if you want a better version, is going only for 300 dex, and then pushing this over here to 250 strength. This way you're gonna get the stam regen while performing basic attacks. It's gonna be even better than what we're showing here. And then if you wanna go for insane damage, you go push for 350 strength, because as you can see, your abilities are gonna deal 10% bonus damage, and then you push everything else in the dex. And obviously, if you play that, you play 5 con, funnily enough. So if you play 350 strength, everything dex, you play 5 con. If not, you probably push 300, 250. And that's basically about it when it comes to the attributes. I don't think you can really play around too much with it here. Let's very quickly talk about the food buffs that you will be using before you do any sort of PvP activity, whether it's OPR, War, Open World, whatever. First thing you're going to be using is Powerful Honing Stone. This is going to increase your damage by 7%. Very good. Second thing you're going to do is you're going to use your attribute boosting food. In this case, I'm using the Roasted Rabbit with seasoned vegetables. It gives me 48 constitution. If you want to go more glass cannon, you might be using the roasted gnufish to get 48 strength, or you might be using the fried albenaya to get 48 dex. Each one of these will work, and if you find any other solutions that work for your build, feel free to do so. And a very important food that you're also going to be using is the Energizing Hearty Meal. This is going to increase your mana regen by 30% for 40 minutes. Very good. And obviously, you're also finishing it off with a Desert Sunrise. So again, Powerful Honing Stone, Desert Sunrise, food buff of your choice, and Energizing Hearty Meal. That's going to be what you're going to be pre-potting before any sort of activities, and you can keep a good track of what buffs you have by just hovering over this sort of bar right under your character. So usually at this point in the video, I would be talking about the combos that you can do with this weapon, and I would just like to let some clips speak for themselves in this moment. But basically, this might be the easiest build to play if you're inexperienced in the game. All you gotta do is you gotta spin, you gotta make sure you're over 50 HP, and you gotta make sure you're over 20 mana, and you can just heavy, heavy, heavy. Now, there are some small cases of uniqueness that you can do to elevate your game. As you can see, the first hit of your heavy chain is the hardest to hit because it's vertical. Look how my wave flies. It's vertical, right? So that was the second hit, sorry. So first hit is always vertical. So what you can do to make sure you're hitting people that are kiting left, right, is you swing light click first. You light click, and then you heavy, and then you heavy. And then you light click, and then you heavy, and then you heavy. And this way you ensure that you have a much larger hitbox, right? Because if you can see, my first heavy here, if we're shooting between these three, is gonna hella miss, right? But if I'm using the light into heavy swing, it's gonna hit both trees. You see what I mean? So if the person is kiting left, right, doing a nice little swing into heavy, heavy, is going to be your best bet into a light swing into a heavy, heavy. And another thing you can do is you can, when you get close to people, just dodge light click, right? Force their stamina, make them dodge, and then go for heavy, heavy. Right? And these are like the best tips that I can give in this build. And if you get into a trouble situation, pop your Zerk, pop your dodge, distancing throw, and just get out of there. Zerk, dodge, distancing throw, get out, find your distance, use your potions, and then engage again from the distance. And just make sure if you're playing Moonstone the way I'm playing it, make sure that you always use your spin before you go for the big wave attacks. And honestly, that is about it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, if you guys are playing it, make sure you give the video a like and come back in about 2 weeks time because we're gonna need to do an updated video on this build with all the new changes that are coming up in Season 10. I hope this was helpful. I'll catch you guys very soon with more shorts and more videos. And until then, have a beautiful day. Take care and bye-bye.